More than 180,000 illegal aliens crossed the southwest U.S. border last month alone, and those are just the ones who got caught. The Biden administration is spending tens of millions of dollars a week dealing with this crisis that they still won't even acknowledge. Meanwhile, border towns are being overrun, elementary schools are having to go into lockdowns, and police are chasing armed thugs through people's backyards, all because our borders are wide open to anyone who can get across the river. Now, meanwhile, Kamala Harris apparently thinks this is all laughs aplenty, because to her, American lives and the oath that she took to defend them are a joke. Well, frankly, the only jokes I see here are her and the fool she works for. And it's not very funny. According to newly released data, more than 180,000 illegal aliens were apprehended at the southwest U.S. border in May alone. That makes nearly 1 million who've been caught since the start of the fiscal year in October, most of those since Biden's inauguration in January. Are y'all hearing those numbers? 1 million illegal aliens, 180,000 last month alone. This is MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, where the Jets and the Giants play. It seats 82,500 people. Take that, double it, then add another 15,000. That is how many illegal aliens were caught coming into this country unlawfully through Mexico in a 31-day span. And those are just the ones who were caught. Border officials estimate another 1,000 to 2,000 more are coming in every day unpursued because agents are too busy dealing with families, kids, and teens. All this crap, by the way, costs money. Just tons of money. The Biden administration is reportedly spending about $60 million a week just on temporary housing for unaccompanied children and teens. $60 million a week. And that doesn't include the cost of all the other regular border detention facilities, the cost of immigration officials or border agents, the justice system, or the massive economic toll this crisis is taking on localities and states all along the border. All while we've got about 12 million children already living with food insecurity in this country, by the way, we are spending $60 million a week housing illegal alien teens before shipping them off to their aunt who already lives in Minnesota. And apparently Kamala Harris thinks all of this is funny. When NBC's Lester Holt asked why she still hasn't been to the border herself, despite Biden kicking the can over to her to deal with this problem, she actually laughed and said she didn't understand the question.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
I'm here in Guatemala today. At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
Of course, it's easy to just sit there cackling like the Wicked Witch when you don't give a crap about the actual American lives that this crisis y'all have created is affecting in real time. And it is. Border towns are being overrun by illegal aliens, and that is not an exaggeration. In Del Rio, Texas, one elementary school had to go into full-on lockdown a couple weeks ago because a dozen or so illegal aliens were trying to breach the perimeter fence to get away from law enforcement. These are people we don't know anything about, who could be anybody from poor people looking to get a better job to wanted murderers and rapists. And now they're trying to jump a fence to an elementary school filled with kids. And apparently this is a fairly common problem in places like this. In Uvalde, Texas, Mayor Don McLaughlin said his town is having to lock down schools at least once a week, while police go on high-speed chases to run down armed illegal aliens.
In the last 6 months, it's gotten like I've described before, it's become the wild, wild west. I mean, in our community, we were averaging 13 to 15 chases a week in our town. We were having chases, car chases coming into town. We were having to lock down our schools. We're still having to do that usually about once a week, sometimes twice a week, where they bail out by our schools and that, because almost every one of these cars that come in now, they're armed. There's guns in these cars.
Mayors in border towns all along the southwest border say their residents are furious because illegal aliens are crossing the border and running through private property, jumping backyard fences, and tearing up yards trying to get away from the cops, who are doing the best they can but literally do not have the resources to chase all these people down.
They come across and they're getting into their backyards and they're complaining that some of them have even had their property damaged, their fences torn torn down and things of that nature. So, of course, I understand that they're getting upset, but we're trying the best that we can with the personnel that we have.
One rancher in New Mexico says so many illegal aliens are flooding across the border into his property every day that they're driving his cattle away from food and leaving garbage that the cows then try to feed on.
Well, every time that we've had a dramatic surge of foot traffic like this, you get the common problems that everybody sees along the border with trash being left behind, the backpacks, the clothing, all the stuff that's in the backpacks gets scattered across the rangeland, and that's horrible for cattle to encounter, especially if they attempt to consume it. But what we're seeing right now is, because we're in a D4 drought classification, our cattle are struggling to get enough feed to maintain their body condition. So we're having to feed them, but we still have pretty good usable feed in areas along the border. And because we're having such an increase in foot traffic, it's keeping our cattle driven out of these areas. And we've had to try to push them back into these areas, and they keep getting pushed out by the amount of traffic that's coming through.
Most Americans don't live in border towns, but many of them do. Tens of thousands of everyday tax-paying, law-abiding citizens just trying to go about their lives in peace, trying to work and pay their bills and send their kids to school safely. And here is the vice president shrugging off a massive crisis that this administration triggered, laughing it off like these people's lives don't matter. Just like the lives of Keystone Pipeline workers didn't matter, or the lives of business owners who've been decimated by never-ending COVID lockdowns, or violent protesters that Kamala was busy bailing out of jail. All people who have been harmed by the problems that this administration either created or has perpetuated, and that the vice president apparently thinks are funny. They aren't funny. These are people. The residents in these overrun border towns are American people, and any administration that thinks it's a laughing matter that their property is being destroyed and their kids are being put in jeopardy and their towns are being bankrupted by an immigration crisis that the White House started doesn't deserve to be in office in the first place. When the president and the vice president take the oath of office, they swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and say that they will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which they are about to enter. And last I checked, none of that includes mocking the struggles of American citizens at the expense of people who have no lawful right to be here in the first place, all to pander for votes from elite urban liberals who couldn't find the border with both hands and a map. And that's your Reality Check, America. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page, like us on Facebook and Twitter, and stay sane out there.